Great. I want to welcome everyone today to this presentation overview of the Water Quality Management Planning Rules. This is actually the first one that we are doing not only in person, but we're doing via webinar. So hopefully all the technical aspects of that end go smoothly. And for those of you that can only hear me, if it's not going smoothly, you actually can email Jeff Olowski. So get your pens out or get your fingers on your keyboards. His email address is jeffrey.olawski@dep.nj.gov. You also got his email address when you registered, and some of you have already reached out to him with issues. I also want to let you know that the session is being recorded and it will be available on our website in the very near future. It will also provide you with the PowerPoint presentation that you will see today. So with that, we are going to get started. I just saw Dan Kennedy pop his head in. Dan, if you can still hear me and you're going to pop back in, you can, you may. All right. I always say this is why women are not allowed to control the remote at home. So, so with that, I'm just going to provide a really short overview of where we are today with the program. And also the focus of today's program is really on moving forward with the rule and how we're going to be implementing it. We're really not here to discuss or debate what was in the rule in the final version, what was left out, why. You can see all of that in the response to comment document that was part of the recent final adoption. All right, so the rule was adopted a few weeks ago. The final adoption notice appeared in the November 7th issue of the New Jersey Register. As a result, on our website, you will find, starting with the rule proposal, which is dated October 2015, you will find that final adoption document that appeared in the New Jersey Register, and what that is the responses to, we actually condensed probably upwards over nearly 1,000 comments into about 400. So it's those comments and the responses, as well as any changes that we made to the rule proposal on adoption. And then also the rule in its entirety. So the rule with all of its changes also appears. So we did that as, a Word document looking at the changes that we made those in the proposal, and what you'll see is that Word document. And there is the website where you can find that guidance. The other thing we've done is, if you looked at our website maybe a month and a half ago, it was pretty slim. So we had pulled out a lot of old and outdated information, knowing that we would have to refresh most of it. So you'll see updates on there. You will see a link to our team, and we have a good number of the WQMP staff in the room today. They are up there with their email addresses, their phone numbers, as well as their county assignments. We also have updated information on the application process. So we updated the applications and the process under which you submit them. We are about to provide NJDEP's permitted facility information by county with DMR flow information that you can easily download, and I know that that will be of particular interest to the counties or municipalities that are doing wastewater management plans. One of the things that we committed to in the rule, you will find soon the list of urbanized municipalities. Now, we've already provided that to the counties directly via an email, but we're going to post a map as well as the information on those urbanized municipalities. And then workshop materials. We did a workshop that was geared specifically for the county planners. They are probably impacted most significantly by this rule. So we had that with them on, it was nearly an entire day, on October 26th. That information, the PowerPoints from that, are posted on our website. And other things that are coming, we will in the future have frequently asked questions. We will have WIMP adoptions. So currently you can see the adoption notice, but we will actually be posting the WIMP document in the future. And then you can also see all of the amendments that we make by water quality management area. We're actually going to provide another option of looking at them by date. So if you were interested in all of the ones that were adopted last year, that is a sort of an organizational change that we're going to be making. So hopefully most of you found out via a listserv about this workshop, and I can't reinforce enough to have people sign up for the listserv. Although we will still provide county direct emails, we post a lot of information via the listserv. So we just sent one out yesterday that was outlined a number of updates that we made to our webpage, and those are things that we want all of the stakeholders to know. We also last week started, we actually probably started a couple weeks ago, but last week there was a listserv message that outlined the new public notices for proposed WQMP amendments. That is a commitment that we made under this rule, that we will be sending out the notices in several different forms. It's going to go out snail mail, it's going to get posted on our website, it's going to go out via listserv, and it will ultimately be in the New Jersey Register. So there's the website for those that have not subscribed and that are interested in doing so. And this is what the overview for today's workshop is going to entail. And we're going to hear about wastewater management plans, about site-specific amendments, about the continuing planning process, and then we're going to end with Q&A. So the webinar, or actually the whole workshop, is designed to get through all the presentations, hold your questions till the end. Those that are participating via webinar, you can type in your questions somewhere on that screen. Unfortunately, I don't have the screen in front of me, so if it's not self-explanatory, again, you can email Jeff Olowski if you're having any problems. And then for those of you that want to ask questions here, we have a wireless mic, and for everyone to hear, you're going to have to ask your question into the microphone. I know some people don't care to do that, but those participating on the webinar won't be able to hear you. So that's my contact information. I have asked all of the WQMP staff when reaching out, whether it's you know, over the phone or and leaving you a message or in correspondence, they will give you their direct phone line. So everyone should be pretty easily accessible, including myself. So that's my direct line as well. And it's probably been my direct line for the past 25 plus years. So I'm not going anywhere. So with that, we are going to, I am going to turn it over to the next presenter, who is Barb Greenhall-Weidman, who's going to talk about the wastewater management plants.
Assuming it works. Let's practice. Can you guys hear me? Good. Only because I know they can't hear on the webinar if I don't talk into this, and it's not my preferred method of speaking, but I'll try to make it work. As Colleen said, I am Barbara Greenhouse-Weidman. I supervise the staff that are reviewing the wastewater management plans. And the first thing I should cover, if I can make it work, is one of the things we always hear is we didn't have enough people to review the plan, so we've tried to staff up. I was able to hire some former watershed ambassadors, which is kind of nice. They already know about the department a little bit. So I actually have 6 staff people now that can review wastewater management plans. I know Colleen, I don't want to contradict Colleen. She said most of them are in the room. Most of them are in GIS training today, but a few of them are in the room. What the web address that we have posted there is a table which tells you exactly which reviewer does what county. It also lists the 3 staff people that we have that do site-specific amendments and their primary areas of responsibility. So again, as Colleen said, so everybody knows how to contact us, who to contact to get the best or the most not the up-to-date, but the correct person to ask a question of. Another reason, I think I kind of covered this, we're doing this to be a little more responsive when people ask questions, mostly for our county partners. If we have one person only responsible for a few counties, they can certainly be a lot more helpful, provide assistance, help them prepare the wastewater management plans or steps if necessary. You know, obviously my new people are still getting up to speed, but we're going to do our best to be as helpful as we can to the county planning people. So now under our rule, a lot of things have changed. We have tried to make the wastewater management planning process a lot more flexible. So one of the things that under this flexibility is we are making the use of a template to do a wastewater management plan an optional thing. We are drafting a template at the moment because many of our counties want a template. They don't want to have to recreate the wheel, but if they have their own, if they've done a plan under the old rule and the information matches what they need to do under the new rule, you know, they don't have to redo it. We're trying to, again, we're going to be flexible. We're going to try to work with them to make sure that people aren't doing work that's not necessary. Another thing that's new is you are not required to do a complete wastewater management plan for every single municipality to submit it at one time. That's what you had to do under the prior rule. Now you can submit an individual wastewater management plan component, which I'll talk about in a minute. But our limitation is if you do this component, it has to be at least be the size of a municipality. There's a lot of flexibility. You can do, oh, I don't know, 5 municipalities. You could do 10 municipalities. Maybe all but 1 municipality in your county is ready to go. However it works for the applicant is what we intend to do. So what are our wastewater management plan components? Well, they're the wastewater management plan text, and you know that things like the table of contents, facilities tables, kind of information that's always been in a wastewater management plan. The important things, the wastewater capacity analysis, and that's going to be things like your existing flow, your build out, the capacity of your treatment plants. You're going to do, I'll say nitrate dilution analysis, which we're also kind of calling our non-sewer service area capacity analysis. In other words, you're seeing what the capacity of the nitrate in the groundwater is to meet the 2.2 target. Anyway, we have one thing I did not list here that's sort of another important component is the septic management plan. I have a slide on that a little later. When you've done your capacity, you determine, hey, my treatment plants are fine, I don't have any problems. Or maybe you say, uh-oh, my treatment plant is nearing capacity, I might have an issue. When you reach that 80% limit for us, one of the things we're asking people to do is to work on strategies for how am I going to solve this problem. It's a separate component. It doesn't have to be done at the same time as everything else. You might identify your problems, get that all adopted, and then say, hey, now let's work on strategies to figure out how we're going to solve the problem. But these are sort of a long-term thing. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. After strategies, we also have our mapping, which is mostly very similar mapping to what everybody's used to. You're going to have a WIMP area boundaries map, so what area the WIMP is covering. You're going to have the select environmental features map, which is your map which shows your threatened and endangered species, your natural heritage priority sites, your 300-foot riparian zones of Category 1 waters, and your wetlands. Same as the existing rule, those are the same categories that we looked at as ESAs before. The third map is your wastewater service area map, which pretty much identifies your treatment plant and service areas. The new thing in this map now is it's going to be showing assigned sewer service area, so if you know what treatment plant it's going to, and the flows actually already go in there. Unassigned sewer service area, you know it's going to have sewer, but you don't necessarily know the treatment plant. And then third category is non-sewer service area. The zoning map, we've always asked for zoning where you aren't doing your analysis based on being an urban municipality. You need the zoning to come up with your build-out analysis. We have another optional mapping category because some people will probably likely do their build-out and submit a separate map. So what else has changed? Well, under this new rule, we are now requiring all submittals for wastewater management plans, and this also includes individual amendments, to be electronic. We are working very hard to get a new regulatory service portal. It's been under development for quite a while. It's recently had some snags with uploading shapefiles. We are hoping it will be online by the end of the year, but the rule requires this to be electronic. So in the interim, while we're still working on getting that portal completed, we have an email portal set up, and that address is on the slide. Just to reiterate some of the things that are no longer required. We used to do a water supply analysis, and that's not required under the new version of the rule. We do have 281 parcels that are in deficit HUCs in the Highlands region that the Highlands Council is quite concerned about. So we're in negotiations with them regarding whether or not these parcels might be somehow identified to maybe not be automatically consistent. Also not required is stormwater ordinances and steep slope ordinances. We're no longer doing that review as part of a wastewater management plan. So back to the septic management plans. They are required, but the components of them are somewhat streamlined from how the wording of the rule may have led people to believe, and what's being considered an acceptable waste septic management plan would be these three pieces: an inventory, a discussion of what you're doing now regarding, maybe you pump, maybe you don't, maybe your county does something, maybe your health department does something. So what are you doing now? And what might you do in the future to enhance protection of water quality or keeping those septics functioning well in the future? And that's what I was going to cover. So with that, I will turn it over to Alan Miller, who is going to talk about site-specific amendments.
Thank you, Barb, and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the wonderful world of site-specific amendments. So I'd like to start, this doesn't happen by itself, does it? Okay. So we have, and I'll start with, I'll focus on amendments to begin with. So at this point, there are two types of site-specific amendments that we are looking at, what we call our large and our small. The large amendment is 100 plus acres and or 20,000 gallons or more of flow. Our smaller amendments, which probably encompass most of the amendments that we will review, again, are less than 100 acres and less than 20,000 gallons of flow. What is a project, you may ask? By the definition that we have, a project is at a minimum a concept plan that identifies the building footprint, the wastewater flow, and the location of all infrastructure if possible, meaning roads, stormwater connections, whatever you can give us. And practically what we would need to have is information that would support your request for a site-specific amendment and gives us enough information to make a determination for that request or not. For the larger projects, there are some notification requirements that will go into effect, and that has to do with notifying the property owners that will be affected by that increased flow. And we are doing that by asking the applicant to identify, and it's a recommendation, via certified mail with return receipt requested. That really gets to the fact that people should understand that there are significant development projects that are going on that may affect them. I have more than one controller here. Some of the details for us, and I have too much paper, is that we also are now with our application requesting consistency to local and county zoning and master plans. Part of the application process is that when you apply for a site-specific amendment, there will be questions asking you if it does comport to local zoning and master plan, both on a county and a local level. And if not, why not? We also, and you will submit with your application proof that you have contacted the municipality and county and requested that information from them. We're not requiring you to show us their response at this point in time, but you do have to show us that you've requested that from them. This speaks to the fact that the municipality should be informed, as well as the county, upfront that there is a development project potentially going on, and you are requesting sewer service area amendment for that project. We have also a 90-day, well, we're calling review period. Basically, a clock will start after submittal when we feel that you have submitted all of the required information to us. So we're trying to make our process somewhat seamless and smooth, and give you anticipatory timeframes that you can expect an indication as to what your site-specific amendment approval or denial, when it may be down the pike. Another change from the former rule to the current rule is that no longer will a site-specific amendment require a wastewater management plan. So even though that prior to the new rule coming into effect, we had considered applications from projects that had no current wastewater management plan because they were under the Permit Extension Act. We could look at them and approve them. At this point, we don't need the Permit Extension Act is no longer there except for in some Sandy affected counties, and we no longer require that wastewater management plan to review those site-specific amendments. We also will no longer be reviewing for steep slopes, stormwater management plans, as I said, riparian analysis for non-category 1 streams and waterways, as well as the water supplies. Okay. Part of site-specific amendments, well, and is also the revision process. Revisions are now very specific. They are to either correct or clarify erroneous or unclear information in an area-wide WQMP, provided that the change is not substantial and substantive. They are to adjust the Highlands RMP map, to update the Pinelands wastewater service area map, to transfer wastewater management plan responsibility, and to modify schedules of the wastewater management plans. The other thing that falls into some of the areas that we're looking at are urbanized municipalities, as Barb had indicated on the WMP portion of the presentation. Urbanized municipalities, that the definition initially was 90% of municipal lands that appear as urban lands per the land use and land map database at GIS and DEP. We took a look at that as we began to look at response to comments and realized that there were a number of municipalities that had fallen off the radar screen: Atlantic City, Linden, Camden. So we began to look and consider taking a different approach. And urbanized municipalities, besides that initial definition that was in the proposed rule, now includes NJRA, or urban, used to be called Urban Coordinating Committee municipalities, but they're now the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority municipalities, urban enterprise zones, UEZs, transit villages as adopted by DOT, and the Economic Opportunities Act's Garden State Growth Zones, which call out 5 municipalities in the state as being urban municipalities for special incentives. The other piece of what we're now doing is for the threatened and endangered habitat, and we're looking at both habitat suitability determinations and habitat impact assessments. So there's a process that we are drafting, and it is draft, and these processes are welcome. We welcome your input to these processes. For planning areas 1, growth areas, and projects that are infill, if it is determined that there is habitat critical to the local population or an ESA, then you need to submit, or should be submitting to us, either a habitat suitability determination or other data. Once that is analyzed by our partners at land use, if it is not critical habitat, then we will add you to the sewer service area, considering everything else in the application is clean. If it is determined to be critical by land use, then a habitat impact assessment needs to be done. If the project is outside planning area 1, if it is within a growth area, if it is infill or not an endorsed plan, and it has an ESA, then you need to also do a habitat suitability determination. Again, if it is determined that habitat is not suitable, the conditions have changed, or the GIS that was used is inaccurate, we may consider that towards adding to a sewer service area. If one of those conditions are not met, then a habitat impact assessment also needs to be done. We move on to that special areas of CAFRA, fringe planning areas, rural planning areas, and environmentally sensitive planning areas. If we find that the public health safety is jeopardized by conditions on the ground, if it is infill or if it is to create linear boundaries, then we then go to considering it to add to a sewer service area. If it does not hit one of those marks, we do not add at all. There is no HIA that you can appeal to, and at that point you need to go to a planning area change to have that property admitted to a sewer service area. So for habitat impact assessments for all the non-CAFRA areas, if it avoids or has insignificant or discountable impacts to habitat, if that's the case, then if we find that's to be true, then we can add it to a sewer service area. And if we find that it is not the case, then we work with land use to find if there's a way to minimize, as practical, mitigate for no net loss of habitat, including for the local habitat population. Some of the other things that are no longer reviewed by us are consistency determinations. We also now look at infill, and simply the definition of infill means that it is undeveloped or underdeveloped land in an area that is contiguous to and substantially surrounded by developed land that is served by a wastewater treatment facility. We no longer have newspaper requirements for notice. As Barb and Colleen had indicated, they will be posted online. And as Barb said, that there is an electronic submittal that will be hopefully working within the next few weeks. The other thing is that with site-specific amendments as well as wastewater management plans, we are taking a common sense approach. Some of what we now look at and try and maybe think outside the box a little bit, try and work with our applicants and our other partners to see if there are ways to mitigate certain situations in order to see if these sewer service area amendments are potentially possible. And we also, I think, have come up with a plan for an increased and better customer service. For that, we mean that we will stay with you the whole process. We will let you know once the application is in-house. If there are issues during the process, we will let you know. And we will keep you informed, and hopefully you don't feel as though you need to call us because we've proactively called you. That's my presentation. That's my contact information. And next up is Jennifer Feltis-Cortese and it's all you.
Hello.
Hi.
Good. Got some smiles. I'm Jennifer Feldes-Cortese, and thank you for sticking with us this afternoon. I'm here to discuss the continuing planning process. While Nadia Comaneci was earning perfect tens for the first time in Olympic gymnastics history, the DEP was busy earning its first perfect 10 from the EPA for its 1976 CPP. The CPP is a federal requirement by the Clean Water Act. Oh, sorry, I gotta get closer. Can you guys hear me now better? Is that better? Okay. It is required by the federal Clean Water Act and the New Jersey Water Quality Management Act. Each state develops a CPP to reflect the compilation of actions, policies, or programs they have in place regarding water quality planning, management, and implementation strategies that serve to maintain, improve, and protect water quality. There are 9 minimum components for the CPP, 3 of which are directly related to the newly adopted rules. These include the process for developing total maximum daily loads, the process for updating and maintaining water quality management plans, and the process for assuring adequate authority for intergovernmental cooperation in the implementation of the state water quality management program. And then here are the remaining components. New Jersey law requires many of the same requirements, but it also includes a few additional ones, such as integrating and unifying the statewide and area-wide water quality management planning process, as well as a description of how we will do area-wide waste management plans. So, the new and improved draft 2015 CPP is available online for review, and once it's complete, will replace the current 1985 CPP, which is currently known as the State Water Quality Management Plan. And it will be submitted for approval to the EPA once it is complete. The CPP is being set up in a way to promote it as a living document. This means that there are, it's got some text to it, but it also has a lot of links to our various programs and resources that to meet all the requirements by the federal and state regulations. So even when we make changes to our programs or our guidance and we put it available online, we don't necessarily have to go back to this document and change everything every time we make up-to-date information available on our website. So just to look at the table of contents, that's for this, and then it also has a very large appendix, Appendix A through I. E through H are specifically related to the new WQMP rules that just got adopted. So Appendix E, the wastewater treatment capacity analysis. This has a description of what the build-out is for areas within the sewer service area. This will involve either using your population projections in urban municipalities or build-out based on zoning in your non-urbanized municipalities. The capacity analysis will use that information that you gather from doing your build-out and compare it to the wastewater treatment capacity, their flow projections. And if you have a deficiency, then you would go and look at the strategies that are listed as well here. And these are just descriptions of these strategies, and they may include zoning changes or reducing the size of their sewer service area, for example. Appendix F is the nitrate dilution analysis. Again, it goes over the build-out for areas outside the sewer service area, and this is done based on zoning. You find out what your zoning shows that your development potential is, and compare that to the nitrate dilution modeling that gives you the number of septic densities that you could, the septic density that could be supported while also maintaining a 2 milligrams per liter nitrate dilution in the groundwater. Did everybody get that? It's a mouthful. Yeah, so thank you. So if it's shown that your zoning is greater than the septic density that the model shows that would be supportive of maintaining that 2 parts or 2 milligrams per liter nitrate, then you would look at the strategies for addressing this deficiency. And these may include zoning changes again, as well as possibly considering additional sewer service area. And then there's also additional information on the septic management plans. Appendix G has some additional information for environmental sensitive areas. We've included the steep slope ordinances and riparian buffer ordinances that we had previously required by the rules, because these are and continue to be protective of water quality. So if a town is looking and reviewing their land use policies and procedures and feel that they need to do some additional measures to protect the water quality within their area, they can consider these as possibilities. Additionally, there is additional information on the habitat impact assessment. Here we have information from the comment and responses from the rule, as well as the rule text explaining what the habitat impact assessment is. And that's it for me. Here's my contact information. Again, thank you for being here with us today, and we will open the floor to comments and suggestions. Oh, I forgot one thing because I didn't put it up here. This is a draft document, so we are taking comments and questions. So feel free, take my name, number down. I have a few business cards. So if you have had an opportunity to read the document or are interested in reading it and have comments or questions, please reach out to me. And that's it. So we open the floor. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. I just wanted to provide one clarification on the CPP, which is which I think Jen got to at the end, which is the CPP itself is not necessarily open for review and or approval by EPA, but rather those appendices that we're working on. And many of you, and perhaps many of you on the webinar, have seen our working draft of the appendices, in particular F, G, H, and perhaps I. So those are the things that we would like your input. These are we don't want you to have to recreate the wheel kind of toolbox. So it's, sort of a compilation of what are those things that are working already, or what are those things that we need to develop. So one of the things you will see is more information on the HIA process. So since that's new, you saw some basic flow diagrams of how we think the process could move forward when you encounter T&E habitat. We want to put a little bit more meat on the bones with respect to when you're going to do an HIA, perhaps what that process would look like. And we're working with the land use program. Larry Torok is here with us today. He's our parachute, he's sort of our parachute for those kinds of questions that we get today. So as far as taking questions, if those of you on the webinar, you have not figured out how to ask a question, on your screen, there's a small control panel located on the upper right corner with an orange button and an arrow on it. Just click on that button to expand the window, and below where it says enter a question, you got it. You type in your question and you hit send. So Jeff has been working away behind the screen there, and all of you should be able to see the questions. Unfortunately, I cannot read them from here. so I'm going to move. I'm going to move a little forward. Yeah. Okay. I think I can read them. The first one is, are riparian zones regulated under the flood Hazard Area Control Act rules no longer considered ESA, provided they are not associated with a C1 water. Well, when you take a look at the environmental sensitive areas and the category, the different categories of environmentally constrained areas, it actually, when it says the C1, there is a relationship to them in the flood hazard, in the flood hazard rules. So I'm not sure if I answered that question. If I have not, feel free to type in, perhaps one that's a little bit more detailed. It looks like the next one says, is there a maximum size defining infill projects? The size of the project is limited by the flow. The flow has to be less than 8,000 gallons. So the flow calculations from the NJDEP rule, if you sort of back end into it, would only allow for a certain number of units or seats in a restaurant or, those kinds of things. So there probably is a size limit. The only size limit that we have is that the project cannot be more than 8,000 gallons per day. It says, since the definition of urbanized has changed, if you guys could see me, it's kind of hilarious trying to read these. Some towns are no longer considered urbanized. Previously, counties provided information to NJDEP showing how some municipalities should be considered urbanized. Is this approach still possible? So we talked about this with the counties when we met with them in October, and there may be instances where, as Alan mentioned, we try to capture the obvious urbanized municipalities, and in doing so, this new definition has done sort of both things. It's added municipalities that probably you wouldn't consider urbanized, but we needed to capture Atlantic City, Camden, New Brunswick, Livingston. But it has left behind towns or municipalities that previously were considered urbanized. The reason being is the old definition allowed you to eliminate areas within the municipality that had very limited or no potential for redevelopment. The new rule definition doesn't allow for that. So we told the counties we'll continue to have a conversation with you about specific municipalities with respect to if they've been left off of the urbanized list. We'll have that conversation as to why you think they should be considered urbanized. Okay, I thought I had another thought, but it left me. It says, water supply is not to be considered under the rule. How can one possibly determine whether an increase in development resulting in sewer service area, water supply is not to be considered under this rule. How can one possibly determine whether an increase in development resulting in sewer service area request makes any sense without showing whether the water supply is sufficient into the future? So this is one of those questions where we don't really want to get into why the rule or the policy decisions behind the rule. We get into this quite a bit in the response to comments. But one of the things that was sort of key in most of the changes in the rule and all of the analyses that we no longer are requiring in the planning phase is that, one, they were either duplicative, or two, that they were better suited in the permitting phase. So this is really about the focus on planning and let the permitting determine and go through the technical review to determine, is there adequate water supply? Is there adequate, because the same question could be raised with respect to capacity at the plant. Those are things that we are not considering. So the fact that you are in a sewer service area in no way means that a project can be permitted to allow a project that would require sewer. The next question, there are many completed WQMPs submitted by Highlands municipalities that have not been acted on by the department, in some cases over a year. When will they be reviewed? So we actually meet with the Highlands on a monthly basis, and we actually have adopted in the last year a couple of municipal wastewater management plans for Highland conforming municipalities. And at this point, we actually are trying to balance the amendments, or excuse me, the wastewater management plans that we have for these Highland municipalities. We're trying to balance that with the county work that we have. So we are working with the Highlands on trying to prioritize which wastewater management plan really needs to happen today, what ones can await a little longer. And actually the ones that we did do, it was because the old rule was still in place and there were some specific projects that the municipality wanted to do that required the wastewater management plan to be in place. Regarding the CPP, is the NJDEP currently working with any municipality on their wastewater deficit, sewers, etc., and it might be useful for counties to set an example of how the process works. Thanks. Okay. So with respect to the CPP, we're actually working on the appendices right now with the counties. It is the county that has the mandate as the wastewater management planning agency. So we actually haven't been working directly with the municipalities, but we've asked the counties to identify tools, and the counties work very closely with the municipalities. So they, they're the ones who alert us to different ordinances that may be helpful to add to the appendices. The other is, something just came to mind with municipalities and the CPP. that escaped me. Did anybody have anything to add? No? Okay. So it says this year's drought has reduced stream flow and in some cases dried up streams. Now will these requirements help to ensure clean surface water if the dilution is reduced by over withdrawal of the aquifer as the, it wasn't, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, it is. This year's drought has reduced stream flow and in some cases dried up streams. How will these regulations help to ensure clean surface water if the dilution is reduced by over withdrawal of the aquifer? Has the EPA accepted these regs? So I'll do the first question first. So the EPA actually sent a letter supporting these rules, and if you look up what number EPA is in terms of the commenter, you could see what they commented on in support of these rules. They actually said they think that these rules will help to improve water quality and to help get more wastewater management plans adopted. As far as the impact of these rules in, the drought and dilution, so these rules require that the analysis go through. And again, anything having to do with anti-degradation of water supply or, of water quality, or with water supply itself, again, that will be looked at on a project-by-project basis when they come in to get permitted by the department. Next question, do you have a timeline for when the WIMP template will be available? So the WIMP template, we are revising the prior WIMP template, but one of the approaches that we've been taking is the department doesn't want to create a document and sort of put it in your face and say, here's what you have to use. So we have been engaging the county on a number of our documents. And so the CPP, there are a number of documents where, we want their input so that these are, they're of value. So the WIMP template is going to take that same course. We could draft everything, and send it out for input, but we're finding that if we sort of move forward in baby steps with, various documents, that will be able to get probably more documents up, and it's just much more manageable in smaller sections. So the WIMP template is in the near future, but it's not going to come out final. We want the county's input, and again, these are those things that we can send out via Listserv if there are others that are interested in providing us with input. We generally find that there are things that the building community is interested in providing input, and then there are other things that the county is interested in providing input. The next one, are municipal steep slopes and riparian buffers accepted as strategies to address nitrate dilution deficiencies? I'm not sure how to answer this, other than, again, in the strategy section of the CPP, we want to work with the counties and have them help us identify strategies that could possibly work. So we're definitely committed to having a conversation. I see this came in from one of the counties. So, we definitely can have that conversation, because I think it, you know, it doesn't, the question doesn't lend itself to a yes or a no, you know, at the moment. The next question. Will a Highlands town that has adopted a checklist ordinance or referral ordinance, which does not change zoning to comply with the Highlands RMP, just refer an application to the Highlands for review? Will these towns be considered Highlands conforming municipalities under the rule? Well, I can tell you what the rule says with respect to when we consider a Highlands municipality as conforming. And that would be at the point after there's a checklist ordinance in place and the land use ordinances that are part of that checklist have been adopted by the municipality. So, and again, we go into this with respect, in the response to comments. I know that that definition is different than what the Highlands considers conforming, but that's, you know, as part of the rule, we're very specific about what we consider sort of that bright line between when a municipality is Highlands conforming. Sure. Do we have questions from the audience? I'll take a little break from reading. Do you want to identify yourself?
Sure. This is Pilar Patterson, and I'm here today with Kleinfelder. First, I want to say thank you, Colleen and Alan and Jennifer and Barbara and everybody. You guys did a fantastic job on the rule. It was a huge undertaking, and I know it took a lot of effort. So it was really great to see that. The question that I have is, on the appendices for the continuing planning process, it was mentioned that you were taking comments on those. And can you tell us what's the process? Is there a deadline? And who do we submit the comments to?
Sure. So one of the things we can do is we can send out the appendices. Now there are appendices that are already up there. There are a few that are still under development. So what we can do is we can send them out via Listserv and give a specific, you know, time frame to comment, and they would go to Jennifer.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Colleen.
Hi.
Steve Simone with Ocean County. I just had some comments on the septic management plan.
Sure.
We have already met with our health department, and they have told us that they fully expect the municipalities to defer to them when it comes with, you know, developing their list of septic systems. And our health department's records are, for the most part, not digital, so it's going to be a little bit of a heavy lift for them. One suggestion they had was if the DEP would be able to come up with a model database that the municipalities or the health department could use, just so you know what to include, what not to include. Is that something that you guys would be willing to do?
We would. Jen, do you want to talk a little bit about the databases? Because this is one of the things that we've sort of researched.
Yeah, it's been a little difficult to nail down where I can find them as examples, and I have not had an opportunity to, I believe EPA has some tools to build a database as well. So I still am in the process of trying to really nail those down for people so that it's useful and not just, you know, there and then it doesn't work. So I was hoping that maybe some of the counties would have a couple of municipalities that had already done this, and they offered up this information, but they have not yet. So I'm going to now have to go hunt down people, I guess, and get that information from them directly. So I think the department has also paid for some databases to be done. So I also need to follow up with those. So it's a work in progress still. So if any of your towns have done them, feel free to share it and we'll comment and possibly use it.
So I was just going to say too, the short answer is, if there are tools that you are saying would be helpful, those are the things that we do want to develop, and we want to, one, provide something that is basic, that would meet some minimum requirements for those that want to take that road, but also provide some other options, and I'll say, for example, for a database that perhaps goes a little bit beyond the basics, but again, without requiring you to follow any one specific example.
I just had one more item on the septic management plan. Would you consider an educational component, a public education component? Because another point of feedback that we got from our health department was that you can make a big impact just informing the public on what they need to do to take care of their systems, and installing effluent filters, for example, would be a big one that's supported by some of the DEP's own literature.
Right. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's already required?
So every 3 years, the counties are required to send out, our health departments are required to send out educational material. Anything above and beyond that would be considered part of your, what does the county do in addition, or what does the municipality do in addition to that? So that's what they currently do. So yes, that would be part of your strategy and part of your plan. Does that answer your question? So yes, we are encouraging education to be a part of the plans.
Hi, Tony Ludovico. I guess it's in connection with submitting comments on the CPP. The biggest issue that I'm running into in doing site-specific amendments is the habitat issue. And when you do a suitability determination, most of the time, I'll use the word most of the time, the site has suitable habitat, but there's discrepancy as to whether it's critical, whether it's really needed, whether it meets requirements to have through the impact assessment. And do you want specific comments on that? I mean, where are we with that? Because that's really the major issue that from the development community and needs to be addressed, such that we know up front, look, if we go down this path, we have a reasonable expectation. Or look, once we identify this information, I'm going to be wasting a lot of your time because this doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere, or this is the thing that has to get addressed right up front, and I don't know if there's going to be a process to do that up front. So are you looking for comments like that, or how detailed are you looking for
so,
that? You know?
Sure. So I think that what would be most helpful is, what are those questions that you need us to answer so that the process for you is a little more predictable. So I think that that's what would be most helpful, and so that we can provide some guidance around those questions. And so when we say the appendices E through H are going to be out for review, keep in mind this is not a regulatory document. What it is a toolbox. It's so that you don't have to recreate the wheel. Part of it is a compilation of all of our programs and regulations in one place that speak to primarily water quality, and that's the CPP requirement, from the federal government and from the Clean Water Act. But it really, so I think rather than doing a review, it really is looking at these appendices to say, this is not helpful to me in understanding what's involved with the HIA process. This is not helpful to me in what's required in the septic management plan. Because again, none of this is specific to, you must do A, B, C, and D. Rather, it's trying to provide you with you know, some options
Right, yeah.
or some examples
Right.
so that you don't have to recreate the wheel. What we ultimately want to do also is as we start having HIA submittals that we approve, that we post them so that people can learn from examples that we've already approved.
That's good, because I was looking for, like, this type of species, this is the type of thing that if you created this type of atmosphere, if you used the site design to create wetland basins, and that would be helpful for this type
Right.
of species and stuff like that. Just things that we know that, okay, this is where we could go.
Right.
Whether you're going to get approved or not is why the process is there, but at least we know how to upfront try to address some.
Right. And there may be questions like that, like
Right.
for this species, it may not be
There's a lot of
sort of black and white.
species-specific, yeah.
Right. So, but to the extent that we can provide some more predictability, we want to work with you to do that.
And then one submission item prior to it going fully electronic with the forms through the portal, the concern was the shapefiles. Do you still want the shapefiles submitted email? Is that how you want us to submit the application now? When we submit an email, just submit the shapefile?
Yes.
I don't have to send a separate disk, you just submit it to
Correct.
that is easier for us.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions here? Okay, I'm just going to finish up with the ones that came in through the webinar. So it says, is there a deadline for all wastewater management plans or only those subsidized by the NJDEP grants? So we have, and again, we lay this out in the response to comments, we've provided the opportunity for counties to obtain nearly, in total, almost $2 million in grants to develop their wastewater management plans. So we're working with the counties through, reviewing scopes of works to allow them to obtain these grants. So the rule says that all wastewater management plans are due 18 months after the effective date of this rule. So the rule also says that, and Alan mentioned this, that you can obtain a revision to change that schedule or to change the schedule upon which a wastewater management plan is due. So we've talked to the counties about, the deadline is the deadline as outlined in the rule. If you feel that you're not going to make that deadline, there are certain expectations on the part of the county. They have to be working with the department closely. We're going to require that the counties meet with us on a quarterly basis. We don't want to find out, 16 months from now that you're not going to be able to submit your wastewater management plan. So we've talked about those expectations with the counties. Again, it's laid out in the response to comment document. So the deadline is 18 months from the effective date, unless you have an adopted schedule change through the revision process. It says, I'm looking at the CPP, and where is the HIA that Jennifer just referred to? So you'll see that the those appendices, E, F, G, H, are still actually underdeveloped, under development. They are underdeveloped too, probably. So, and again, we can send them out via the listserv. And I just ask that you look at them from a, do they provide value to those that need to refer to them? Because it's not a regulation. It's not a regulatory anything that someone has to meet. It's trying to provide them with tools to help them meet a requirement that is in the WQMP rules.
Hey, Colleen, I just
Yeah.
want to also interject here that keep in mind that there are limitations to the information that will be provided in there, because there's possibly a way I could cover every possible scenario that could happen in every wastewater management plan or HIA, but that would take an incredible amount of time and would no longer be of use to anybody using it. So I just want to kind of manage expectations that it may not have every answer you are looking for, but that doesn't mean that the department's not here to work with you or that staff is not going to work with you to help in your particular situation or in your unique scenario. So I just wanted to kind of interject that, because I don't want people to get this and have these really lofty expectations that it's going to cover everything, because it doesn't. So I just wanted to
Great,
say
thanks.
that.
We have a question online. It says large files will not be able to be transmitted via email. What will be the process for submission of large electronic files?
Once we have the electronic portal, they can have an unlimited size for a submittal. For the interim, when you're submitting it via email, unless you're a wastewater management plan, your file should be small enough to come through our regular email. But if you don't, obviously we'll have to take a disk, because if we can't accept it via email and it has to be electronic, the rest of it, all that can be will have to be. And that's all I can say is give us a disk with what doesn't come through the email.
I know that there's a 25 megabyte size limit for what can be submitted via email. So again, if you, so if you have an issue, if you can send 2 emails or contact the person that you're working with in the WQMP program to tell them that you're having difficulty submitting it. There was a question, under what circumstances would a municipality be required to adopt a steep slope and or riparian ordinance in order to have a WIMP that is compliant with the rules? Do towns have to include these ordinances in the WIMP municipal chapter? So there are no requirements for these ordinances. The reason Jen mentioned them is that when you are looking at strategies, let's say you have a capacity, a potential capacity deficit when you do your wastewater capacity analysis. If a municipality chooses to pass some type of ordinance, these are, again, we want to point to some examples that the municipality can use. So again, I keep saying as not to recreate the rule. So there's not a requirement for them to have these, but if that is part of their strategy, then that would be a some type of formalized strategy. And I don't know that it would be part of the municipal chapter unless you did that strategy analysis and actually implemented a strategy as part of your WIMP submission. So generally, if you're going to do an ordinance, it's going to be as part of the strategy, and that would be, sort of your own volition on the municipality's part, and that would come after actually the WIMP is adopted. So I hope I answered that. I think I answered that first one, Jeff, about steep slopes, and the second one. So I think this may be a follow-up to the HIA, but the HIA is a requirement in the rule under particular circumstances. So how can it not be regulatory with clear standards and benchmarks. So there is a standard, and the standard is in the rule for if you're doing an HIA. An HIA is an option. So if you have a project and you encounter teeny habitat, either you do a habitat suitability determination, or you already know it's suitable habitat, then you choose to do the HIA. And again, Alan talked a little bit about what those standards are, and they're, I want to say one is, I think when you're doing, so, Larry, do you want to talk to this a little bit, just about what the standard is? Is it, or you can correct me.
I mean, I guess it's Larry Torok from Land Use Regulation. I guess the standards really sort of formulate themselves into a situation where you either would be avoiding the habitat on the site, so that there may be habitat on the property, but the project or the wastewater management plan footprint would avoid that area specifically. The second option sort of relays around having almost a minimal impact on the habitat that may be on the property or within the project footprint. You know, I think the language in the rule talks about insignificant or discountable. It's not exactly clear how those standards will be applied in an area fashion, because the first question would be, well, is that acreage or whatever? But it'll be something that will probably formulate itself through the evolution of the implementation of the rules and particular situations. And then the third option is if you have to impact habitat that would extend beyond the insignificant or discountable, you would have to demonstrate through a variety of mitigation steps that the project would result in no net loss of habitat quality or quantity. And I think that's the one that's going to be most difficult, and that's really the one that will develop as the rules are implemented.
Great, thanks. Do we have any other questions? I don't see any more from the webinar attendees. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, question deals with a site in the CAFRA area that would not be in a growth area in the CAFRA, and we would need to have the planning area changed under the state plan. That has historically been a difficult process, and it's been difficult to coordinate. Has there been any progress made in trying to coordinate the state planning process and the change in the state planning designations in the CAFRA area with a request for a wastewater management plan, or is it still two separate tracks that one goes on? Right.
So, so currently we work with the OPA, Office for Planning Advocacy, on this. So when we know that there is, an area where there is going to be a state planning change, CAFRA or not, we are working simultaneously so that the planning change and, any WQMP amendment happens at the same time. Great. Are there any other questions? So I just want to thank everyone for attending and participating, and your questions are really important to us. They help us to one, to get to know our own program better, and two, to work through implementation issues that will help this program run more smoothly. So I just want to close with, if you have not signed up for our listserv, please do. and you should be receiving the information. I think that was probably our only action item today, was sending out the that listserv message. So look for that in the very near future on the CPP. So thanks, everyone.